Sometimes you just need to take the slips out and bowl defensively. And you also need to be careful with your computer's defense as well. If you need a VPN, go Nord. NordVPN.com/Kimber to get a 2-year contract with a discount, plus 4 extra months and gifts in some markets. It's completely risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. The link is in the show notes. So put in some dot balls and turn them into maidens via NordVPN.com/Kimber.
And welcome to the Scoreboard. I don't know if you're a Delhi fan and you're here. Congratulations. I respect that. Maybe respect is the wrong word, but I am Jared Kimber. If you want to ask any questions, super chats are always the best way to go. But anything in the comments, I'll try and take a look at after we've gone through the scoreboard part of the show, or the first half, or the spine, the batting. I don't really know. I haven't really thought this through. But let's start with the actual show. Sunil Narine has decided after years of negative or no batting that he's going to be better than ever before. He went 7 and 7, 7 fours and 7 sixes. And from that moment on, really, nothing else matters all that much, if we're being honest. Because the game was basically over by the time that Shreyas Iyer decided to come in and bat ahead of Rinku Singh. Yes? Some of us actually noticed this. Remember that Delhi won their last game, and I say that just in part because I'm not sure how many times we'll actually get to use that phrase this year. Will somebody please fix Kuldeep Yadav? Although, quite the game to miss if you're a bowler. What happened in the chase? Well, there was no chase. Mitchell Starc finally looked like a facsimile of his old self, but to be honest, I think I could have bowled with 172 runs on the board. Marsh, Perel and Akshar will be pissed off that on a wicket this flat, they had to score 19 runs a ball or whatever. I don't know. I gave up looking at the numbers at a certain point. Tristan Stubbs made a 50 if you're a Delhi fan hoping for some positives, but at a strike rate of 168. I gave it to you, then I took it away. It's a throwaway game for Delhi, fast on the way to being a throwaway season. And I'll be honest, Kolkata have a fantastic record, and I still have absolutely no idea how good they are. All right, on with the rest of the show. Let's see what we've got. This is sixes per match by season. And I do think this is a fascinating stat in many ways, because someone asked a question on one of the other scoreboards the other day, just talking about the fact that there is a, what's the best way of putting it? Are sixes becoming the 3-pointers of cricket? And of course they are and have been for a while. And so there's no massive surprise there. But when you look at the progression of 3-pointers in the NBA, for instance, you can see that there's a little spike in the 90s when they made their line shorter. But otherwise, it's pretty much just a steady progression up. That's not the case in cricket, right? This is kind of all over the place from 2008 to 2013. You then see, again, we find another level here, but then we plateau at this other level. We then have 2018, and actually goes down back to the level of 2014 before now we seem to be getting some progression. The one thing I would say is, and you need to look at this beyond just the IPL, but and the reason for that is when you look at it from the IPL, you're going to be missing a few things. This won't show you what pitches were played on that year, and it won't show you what ground sizes were played on. Whereas I think if you look at it all the way through T20 cricket, it'd be interesting to see if it was a little bit more of a progression. But that's quite the jump up as we sit here at the moment, right? That's what, 4.5 sixes more per match than we've seen at any other time. It feels, it certainly passes the eye test. So it'll be really interesting to see if this continues or not. And it won't just be the IPL, of course. This will probably, if this is right, this will probably be happening in a lot of leagues around the world where the overall sixes is going up. But certainly Sunil Narine hit a lot of them. And this is the average power play runs per season. So you can see here, this is when Kookaburra changed the ball, and it took a little while for the batters to kind of understand that. But that was a little bit more of a steady progression. Early on in T20 cricket, we didn't really know what we were doing. But then you did see a little bit more of, it was coming up, then that ball has gone in, and now teams are taking full advantage of the power play again, which is a very bad sign for anchors. because, traditionally that's where the anchors would go. And if we're hitting more sixes and we're scoring more runs, it's getting harder and harder to be a T20 player who doesn't have at least, the ability to attack in the power play or hit sixes later on, right? Those are the two main things. Not a massive jump up from last year. This could still come down to roughly the same mark. But again, it's something that is certainly worth having a look at going ahead. And this is Sunil Narine's stats, true stats by year. So this is his true average and this is his true strike rate. So the best way of explaining that is when a batter comes in with a score on 0 for 0, all right, we have an expected total of what that player will be able to score in that kind of situation. And if they come in at 17 for 4, we have an expected score of what a player and how many balls they will face in that kind of situation. So that's what true average is, and true strike rate is just simply, we know the strike rate of every single ball in T20 cricket, and we mark that back to the player who is what they did against that. So these are both plus and minus marks. So with that in mind, and then of course, Varun's put in the actual runs scored. So you can see here, there's some years where he basically doesn't bat. 2023, he scored 21 runs, right? And you can see there, he didn't do it very fast or anything else. And we can see there's another year up here, 2016. Everything over here is not important, right? Let's get to 2021. So he makes 62 runs that year. He's striking slightly above average and slightly behind on true average. I think for Sunil Narine, that is a plus season because you're not expecting him to be the sort of person who's going to make a massive amount of runs. What you really want is those scores between 12 and 28 that are done very, very fast, right? With no fear, really. So you've got in here in 2020, you've got 121 runs. Again, the true average was a long way down, but you can see his true strike rate is 20 points higher than what a normal batter would have done in that period, right? 2019, another fine season. All of these, I think, are excellent from Sunil Narine. It's a bonus. As long as you never count him as an all-rounder, and I think sometimes Kolkata have counted him as an all-rounder, as long as you count these as bonus runs. It's the best way of looking at Sunil Narine. But have a look at this. Strike rate is 37 higher than a batter facing those balls. That is in 2019. 2022, 38 higher. Some of these years are when they started using him in the middle order a little bit more. This was updated. This was before today, of course. And you can see here in 2018, 357 runs, almost a 50 higher strike rate. You still got that low average, a true average there. And then the 2017 season was quite handy. It was only scoring 10 runs less than, and I'm assuming that was as an opener. Well, probably would have been as an opener, right? So he's only scoring 10 runs less than an opener, but scoring at half a run quicker than them per ball. That is phenomenal. So where this little one is going to end up by the end of the year, because his true average, this probably be the first time he'll probably be up here at the moment. So we've had 0 seasons from him. We've had mediocre seasons from him. And we've had plus seasons from him. If he can get himself anywhere up around this area up here, it's such a huge boom. And I'm going to say this again because I've been saying it so much. In the handful of games and I think he'd been opening in all of them. He'd been averaging like 4.3, 4.5, 4.6 or something of recent times before this season started. This is just massive. And when he's feeling like this and he gets himself into that kind of rhythm, he's such a natural swinger of the bat. So he's not a batter, right? And he's not a slogger in that sort of 90s way that we used to see pinch hitters slog. It really is. He has a different kind of swing for each arc, right? And that's he's still got his head up in the air a bit too much at times, and his feet are not always in the area that they need to be for him to even reach some of these balls, right? But the actual swing, if he gets any sort of semi-decent contact, he's probably going to hit a 4, right? And he's clearly powerful enough to hit sixes. He's a fascinating creature because you watch him and everything is skill-based with him, really, right? He's not a incredible athlete. Now, the only thing that he has incredible athletic endeavors in would probably be his hand and wrist, right? His hand, fingers, and wrist. I would give him that. But in no other way does he look like a fast twitch guy or a muscly guy or, a plus field or anything else. I just, everyone will know how obsessed I've been with him over the years. He's so smart, and his ability to go off and work on his game and come back and create problems for other teams. I've talked about this in World Cups before. World Cups are about problem solving. Most cricket games are not really about problem solving in that same way. But Sunil Narine is a player who kind of every year comes back with a new riddle for you to struggle with. I'm going to do this. And he's not a genius in a sort of Virat Kohli or AB de Villiers or R. Ashwin kind of way. In that these riddles and problems can be solved with Sunil Narine. But he makes you solve them. And sometimes it takes a long time. It's fascinating anyway. This is Raghuvanshi, this is his strike rates in match by match in T20 cricket. And again, I thought he was fantastic today. I'm just trying to remember what his full score was. He came in as he went out as the sub. Yeah, I got a bit confused there. Hit 3 sixes, 5-4. So he made 54 of 27 balls. So you can see his first game, he had a strike rate of 108, 102. That one's a throwaway one. But about a run a ball for those 3 of those first 4. We saw a couple here of 150, and then at 2 runs a ball. Some of that might just be wicket. Some of it might be confidence. Some of it might be the fact that he came in. What was the score when he came in? It was 60 poor Phil Salt, who failed here as well. It was 60 after 4.3 overs. And my guess is he came in with a little bit of a license, right? And they said, have a go. But even so, he's 18 years old. He hasn't really knocked the ball off the square all that much. This was his 9th T20 game. I would suggest, I'm just trying to have a look, but it looks like it was certainly his highest score so far. And in fact, it wasn't far off his highest professional score. So in all T20s, he averages 27 with a strike rate of 131, and that includes today. So you can imagine where it was before today. Just very young, very raw, but there's certainly something to him. Watching him play, it was really, really interesting. His List A record's around a run a ball as well. I was looking all that up during when I was watching him. I think he's a fascinating one to have a look at, but you're not going to get too many better situations to come in. As in, I'm positive they just said, keep going. And you don't always get that. This is true balls per 6. So this is factoring in what balls in the game are actually hit for 6 and what balls in the game are not hit for 6. So obviously, openers, you'll see here, Quinton de Kock. Where are we? Oh, we're missing someone here. But Quinton de Kock is someone who doesn't hit who opens batting and hits a lot of 6s, but he's still, for the actual game, doesn't hit a huge amount, but gets a bit of a boost compared to everyone else, right? So you can see here that Gale's at the top. We're all fine with that. But really interesting to see that Sunil Narine is second on this stat. So a lot of that is, again, because he hit 6s in the power play. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So the first 7 guys, this is all dominated by power play batters, because power play batters don't generally hit a lot of 6s, right? And so these guys all do, and so it's quite surprising to see for an opener to do that. So you can see that Narine is huge, although he would probably have opened less than anyone else here because he would have batted in the middle as well. So just fascinating to see him again so high up a list like this. And have a look. So Chris Gale's at 15. And Sunil Narine's at 13.33. Like, he's a long way ahead of someone like Chris Lynn. And Chris Lynn was a fantastic hitter as well. Had issues with the rest of his batting, but certainly a fantastic hitter there. All right. Oh, have I jammed? I've jammed. I'm just going to take a quick break and come back in a moment with more Scoreboard here with Jared Kimber. This is brought to you by Cricket 8. They are a new player in the game trying to educate fans on what is really happening in cricket. We have a partnership with them where we host live watch-alongs, do podcasts, and write articles. If you want to know what is really happening with our game, visit cricket8.com.
If you make any content, Minvo Pro is the tool for you. Take your long format content and cut it and slice it for social media. This AI-inspired weapon will turn your one piece of work into so many clips. Try Minvo.pro now.
Remember that cricket is a funny game. 100 years before we protected our heads, players looked after their groin. So don't be as stupid as old cricketers. Protect your computer. NordVPN is the protection I use when facing cyber short balls or when the rights issue tried to dismiss me. NordVPN will help you get through the straight bat of any GEO blocks so you can watch all the cricket you want. If you need your pitch changed, well, NordVPN can doctor any... All right, big thanks to NordVPN, but let's get back to the actual show here. Sorry about that. So this is just something we were looking at during it, and I'm during the innings. It didn't mean anything as I sort of joked about in the intro, but I thought it was a really interesting one. This is Rinku Singh's strike rate by ball. And remember for someone like him, he hasn't faced many innings where he's probably faced over 30 balls. Whereas someone like Shreyas Iyer obviously has gone on a little bit deep. And you can see that when Shreyas Iyer gets to the death, his true strike rate jumps up quite a bit at that point, right? So I just thought it was an interesting choice, whether they were trying to get, and it might have been Shreyas Iyer's decision, but trying to get him going, because it makes a lot more sense to send Rinku Singh in, because you can see that his strike rate is, for the first 10 balls, is way above where Shreyas Iyer was. And if you look at that innings today, it's not that Shreyas Iyer started exactly in his normal method. He was trying to hit it, but he's not a natural hit 4s and 6s first ball type of player. I thought it was an odd decision not to send him out. It doesn't mean anything. I have to check the notes, but I'm pretty sure they still won the game. But it was just, sometimes it's little things like that if you keep making decisions for your star batters, especially for someone like Shreyas, who is more of an anchor, he actually needs to be in a situation where someone needs to tell him inside that camp, you're not batting next, because that's not what your role is here. If you come in at number 7, number 8, you can probably swing at every ball for 4 or 6 at that stage, or if we lose a couple of wickets, that's actually when we want you. It's just, these little things that we notice throughout the games. It's the difference between a good team and a great team is quite often, Chennai is a good example of this when they're at their best, and Mumbai during their really glory years. It's that ability to not make tiny errors. So just try, even when you try and make every decision so that it puts you in a better position to win the game. So every decision should be a plus, right? Now, you could have sent Rinku Singh out and he makes a golden duck, right? That's fine. But you put him out for the right reasons in the right situation. Just little things like that. Anyway, I don't know what else to say about that innings. They just hit a lot of 4s and 6s. Most, a massive amount of 6s. Let's have a look at Rishabh Pant. So this is, again, true average and true strike rate. So you can see here in 2020, that was the year where he really went full anchor mode. And you can see his true strike rate was 15 lower, minus 15, I should say. And you can see his true average was up a little bit, but not great. 343 runs is okay, but it's not a massive season. And you can see here, there aren't many big circles, right? But that was 2020. We can throw away this year. 2021, again, you've got a situation where he's anchoring, right? So 419 runs, good amount of runs, but we're not talking about 500, 600, 700. Those are the real massive totals that we see sometimes. But you can see again, his strike rate, his true strike rate is basically par, right? And his true average is up. So it's not a bad season, but it's also not a massive plus season. So I just want to come down to some of these years here. So this is 2017. So he scores 366 runs. So not that far away, sort of halfway between these two over here. But in this year, his true average is slightly minus. But his true strike rate is he's a third of a ball more than what we would have expected someone. The impact of a player being able to do that while not giving away too many runs from dismissals is absolutely huge. That's the player that I fell for, that I thought was going to be one of the best T20 players in the world. So that was 2017. The next year, anyone who bought Rishabh Pant stocks at that stage was in for one. So his true average next year was plus 20. He scored 684 runs, but he did it again at a third of a run quicker than what anyone else would have been, than what a normal player would have done with those same balls. That is remarkable, right? So this is 2017, 2018, and you can see 2019, again, third of a run quicker. It's incredible how much he's kept that mark up, right? And then, again, plus true average. So this is the next year after that, 2020. This is the year after that. And this is the year after that. This is the player that Rishabh Pant can be. I don't even care if he's down here. This is a fantastic player. This is a golden god. But this is a fantastic player down here. Absolutely. The ability to score that much quicker while still making, a lot of runs is absolutely huge. This is an anchor that you can find. You can find lesser players who can do this. This is slightly better. Like it's a slight plus anchor, I would say. But again, why would you want him to do that, right? And this season, I'm not as worried about because that's kind of a combination. If Ricky Ponting was to say I want a combination between 2021 and 2017, that 2022 season isn't too bad, right? His true strike rate is still 20 points higher than it should be. I'm okay with that, right? But not when he can do that and that. And not even maybe when he can do that, but certainly the fact he's got 2 seasons up here. I'm hoping that we certainly see something that is to the right of this graphic. It's already looking like he's got the ability to make some runs. Let Rishabh be Rishabh, right? So, that at a certain point, that is what he can do that no one else can do. And everyone's aware of how frustrated I get when, especially Australian and Indian batting coaches, try and make everyone into an anchor. Not everyone needs to be an anchor. Some players can do things. They can average 25 to 35 with strike rates of 150 plus. You can't replicate those kinds of players. So let them do that and find someone else to nudge it around. Anyway, I think I'm so angry I almost jammed the screen again. This is Mitchell Starc's true stats by phase 2014, IPL 2014, 2015. So you can see here, this is when he played for RCB. Yeah, this is the RCB seasons. So he took 9 wickets in the power play, and you can see that he's a plus on true economy, and he was about par there on wickets as an early striker. In the middle overs, though, this is where it gets really, really interesting. He's 1 run and over better than a normal bowler in those middle overs. Still takes 9 wickets, but have a look at his true wickets. So he's getting you almost a wicket and a half extra over a normal bowler in those overs. And then you've got the death, and I always found this fascinating about that great season that Mitchell Starc had. He took 16 wickets in the death, which we could see is about par. Right? That's why we do these true stats, because 16 wickets, it sounds great, but that's about what you would expect someone who bowled as much as him in the death. But the really incredible thing about peak Mitchell Starc was that he was 2.5 runs and over better at the death. So weirdly enough, he got wickets at a normal rate, but it was his economy that was fantastic. So this area up here, I really, really like this a lot, just from a wicket taking point of view. This is probably slightly above par, but it's not as impressive as perhaps 9 wickets in a power play would seem. But this is absolutely fantastic. And it just shows you he was an absolute beast that year, right? It is one of the, on raw stats, I think it's one of the best seasons we've ever had. We talked about with the MVP seasons. I'll get my letters right in a minute. We talked about it on the main channel video that we did last year. If you haven't seen it, we went back and looked for MVP candidate seasons all the way through. And when we had a look at that, we certainly had a situation where it wasn't quite as good as we thought, but this was absolutely fantastic. He hasn't looked like that bowler. He isn't that bowler anymore. That is a decade ago, right? Mitchell Starc doesn't spend as much time thinking about white ball cricket. The wobble ball ruined his swing a little bit. He's probably not quite as fast as he used to be. It'd be really interesting to see how he plays out all the way through the year. But as I said in the intro, he bowled well in this game. Perhaps all of us would have with that many runs ahead of times. But certainly something, it's certainly something worth noticing anyway, or worth noting. So this is also Mitchell Starc's. This is in T20 internationals. So let's get to, I want to start with the power play. All right, so in the power play, he's taken 29 wickets, and you can see he's almost half a run, or just over a third of a run, better and over than everyone else. And even though he's taken 29 wickets, he's basically about par for the amount of wickets you would expect for the overseas bowls. Because remember, he bowls those early overs, and quite often, that's when you do get the majority of your wickets. In the middle for Australia, he's taken 15 wickets. But you can see here, hasn't taken as many wickets for Australia as you would expect. And also a little bit average on economy in there as well. The only caveat I would give to Mitchell Starc is there's probably a lot of international bowlers who have very good T20 international figures, but they play a lot of T20 internationals. Whereas Starc generally plays World Cups, so he's quite often playing against the best players. He's the best bowler, so that's fine. And we've seen him dominate ODI World Cups before. And this is him at the top. So you can see, at the death. So you can see again, 29 wickets, but he actually gets less wickets per 4 overs than you would expect of someone of his talent. And also he's slightly more expensive. So I think the main point of that is that peak Mitchell Starc figure that played in the IPL a decade ago, you look at these numbers and he doesn't really exist anymore. And I still think his best ball is as good as it used to be. I don't think he's the same bowler, and I don't think he stayed ahead of the game the way that he did. He was for a time, up there in an argument for being the best white ball bowler we have ever seen in cricket, and he's no longer. He's no longer pressing that case. His numbers will have to live for themselves now. But things have changed a little bit. But let's see if you're KKR. It worked today, and all you have to do is put on 500 runs, and he might be handy again in the future. All right, that's it for the scoreboard part of the show. We'll take a quick break. Big thanks to Sean and Varun for putting that together. But let's take a quick break here, and then after the break, I'll see if there's anything interesting in the chat that we could talk about. Big thanks to all of our sponsors, Nord, FlexiSpot, and Minvo, for all of their support, and obviously the partnership that we have with Cricket 8 as well.
If you need your pitch changed, well, NordVPN can doctor any surface to a new location so that your IP address is set for you to win. Want to watch a game on a free stream in another hemisphere? Give NordVPN the ball. Or if you just want to watch a clip on social media that a cricket board won't allow, promote NordVPN to pinch hit. So if you need a VPN, go Nord. Use nordvpn.com/Kimber to get a 2-year contract with a discount, plus 4 extra months and gifts in some markets. It's completely risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. The link is in the show notes. Protect your computer like a bowler protects the boundaries in the death overs with nordvpn.com/Kimber today.
All right, welcome back. Okay. Some great super chats here. There's one from Brody, which probably is a wagon wheel one, if we're being honest. I don't know if I have after watching Sunil Narine in that innings, I'm not sure I had my head quite screwed on to answer this, but it's fascinating. In fact, while we're here, I'm going to take a live screenshot, because this might be something that we can make into a feature for another time. How do you think cricket would be different if batters also had ball limits of 24 or 60 balls in ODIs? How would batters and bowlers change strategies? I think what it would do specifically from a game point of view, so let's forget about batters and bowlers for a moment, is it would make it a lot more like baseball, right? Where you would have short games and longer games. So, most cricket games, so you have a game like today, it was massively one-sided, but still went the full distance of time, right? And I don't know how many overs in the end. I kind of tuned out. 17.2 overs, right? So it almost went the full length of the game. Whereas what you would get in a game like this is like imagine you had a game, Brady, where someone lost 5 wickets in the first 5 overs or 8 overs, right? Then now you can have batters bat all the way through the innings to pull that back, whereas you wouldn't be able to. You'd only be able to face 24 balls. So the actual game would probably be a lot shorter. On top of that, you would have you would probably have more wickets in general because you wouldn't have as many set batters to choose from. So even allowing for the fact that you had retirements, right, you would have more wickets as well as the retirements. So it would be very fascinating. I think you would probably 24 balls. I'm trying to think. You would have would batters bat 12 balls to make sure that they chewed up some time at a run a ball, and then for the next 12 balls try and score at 3 runs a ball? Is that a fair way of looking at it? I'm trying to think of like T10 cricket. Cricket is an interesting one from that. The ODI one is actually more fascinating. I don't know if I can answer that. But yeah, I would assume you would have like 2 players who would be maximizing the amount of balls that they face. So trying to get to their 24 balls. And you would probably have 3 or 4 players that would be your efficiency scorers, like trying to score as many runs as possible from 24 balls. Tail-enders become a lot more important, so we would have a lot more all-rounders. If you're a bowler, how would bowlers change strategies? Well, wickets become just so much more important, don't they? So I think bowlers attack more in that world. I think I'm right in saying that. I mean, the truth is that the only way to work out something like this is to have it happen. So if anyone out there wants to start a league like this, I think it's fascinating. And I'd be really interested to see how it would play out as far as the game. But yeah, I think I've nailed a couple of things, but I probably missed like hundreds more ways that it would be really interesting. Thank you very much for your super chat. And I will think about that some more. I'll bat that around with some of my smarter friends. Sankelp says, watching cricket and you for a while, I think that there is still a code to win the IPL. Auction, selection, off-season, etc. It is still far from being cracked. Am I right in thinking this? And why not? I don't think there's a code to win the IPL or any league. I think there is a code of being a successful team over a period of time. And I think that's what teams should aim for. You can't really aim to win a trophy. I know that because once you get down to the end, it's a little bit luck orientated and the toss and a drop catch and, a run out, a fluke run out, or, whatever it may be. All that, conditions on one particular day. Yeah, so you can't code that, right? That is actually, I think, what will always, certainly as long as we play it on a pitch, but I think it's one thing that will always keep cricket just that little bit more enjoyable, is that we can't crack it in the same way that baseball or basketball or NFL, even football can be cracked, right? Cricket just has that variable of the pitch and the conditions that are always going to play such a big part. However, if you want to be good in the IPL, you should be overpaying for domestic players and underpaying for international players. If your best 8 players don't have 5 local players in them, I don't think you can be a consistent player. And then what you do is you just pick up. So think about this in international cricket. So the difference between AB de Villiers and Tristan Stubbs, right? So Tristan Stubbs at the moment and I'm talking about him at the moment, right? AB, we know, can average 35 to 40 at a strike rate of 160, right? The Tristan Stubbs level player at the moment can probably average 22 at a strike rate of 130, right? I don't know what Tristan Stubbs' numbers are, but I'm just guessing off the top of my head. Right? That's a big difference. Your Shikhar Dhawan, who's not even at AB de Villiers' level, can average 40 at a strike rate of 135. Your best Indian batter not in the side, right? He's going to average 20 at a strike rate of 115 to 120. It's very, very different, the level. There are more Indian players. again, that makes sense to go after that. Any league in the world, and this isn't about India or any other country, any league in the world, you start off by getting the absolute best local core that you can get, and then you fill in the gaps with as many you want a couple of utility international players. So Rachin Ravindra would probably count as one of those at the moment. Shane Watson's more of a star, but I'm trying to think of other sort of players out there who, Anton Devcic is a fascinating one. You're looking for a player who, maybe could open. Colin Ingram was a batter who could bat from 1 to 6, right? And was a left-hander and could be a backup wicketkeeper, right? Those sorts of players you can get quite cheap on the market at any stage. David Visa, another kind of player you can fit into a couple of different roles, right? You need better death bowling, you bring him in. You need to shore up your number 7, number 8 position, you bring him into bat, right? Basic little things like that are really, really important. So the best way of being good is that, but that does not guarantee victories. What it does is it guarantees wins over a period of time. The victories sadly still come down to individual situations. Unfortunately, there's not much you can do about that. Seagar says, how the hell are they not getting Narine out? These pro bowlers bowling to a flawed batter, swinging his bat around like a gully player. How often do you think they bowl to someone like that? I think little things like that really, really matter. Also, they would all have their plans to Narine. And this is what I was talking about before with the riddles. They would have had their plans to him, and he's tweaked his game again. That's what he does. He tries to stay one step ahead. Eventually, he's going to crash back to earth, right? And it may not be this year. It might be, well, actually, it may not be this season. It might be in June. It might be in August. We know he'll do it because he's a flawed batter and he's swinging his bat like a maniac. But you do see players like Shardul Thakur and Mark Wood go on runs where, because they play in such a full-on aggressive way at you, that it takes you a while to do that. And in Narine's case, you're putting in incredible knowledge and real high-level intelligence. So that's kind of why these things happen. But thank you for the super set, Sega. Boxbox says, batters are facing fewer balls per innings and scoring quicker in this IPL than all previous ones. Should teams just have hitters 1 to 7 to 8? Or are high strike rate anchors still valuable? Oh, I mean, if you have David Warner, you have the ability to have someone who could strike. What would David Warner kind of be as an IPL player? Let's see if we can have a look at his overall numbers. And this is going to have some of his, non-peak numbers in it. And also probably some of those years where he struggled a little bit, right? So David Warner's career numbers is 4140, right? So let's say that we can get a year of 41-45. That's still a really handy player to have, because there are going to be games when Rabada goes on one and Rashid goes on one and Bumrah goes on one and Narine, no one can hit Narine off the square and all that sort of stuff. You still need batting skills, but your anchors going at those sorts of 125 to 130 strike rate, the way it's currently being played now doesn't make any sense. And I think a lot of this is that and this is a specific IPL thing, although you could throw in the Big Bash in any league that has a substitute, is that the batting order is about half a place deeper than it's ever been before. It's not always a full place deeper, right? Depending on whether you bat first or you bowl first in some cases. That's why I just think have proper substitutes. But you're about half a place deeper than it's ever been before. So the idea now of having hitters batting from 1 to 8 makes more sense now than it's ever made before. A team that would have 2 anchors in it, for instance. I'm trying to think if there is one. Sunrisers have 2 anchors? I don't think they do they? But a team that has 2 anchors in it, I just don't know how they would actually go about making enough runs from the efficiency standpoint. But they're still probably going to win some games because occasionally a bowler will go on one. And that's the kind of, the ebb and the flow. To go back to the sixes point that we were making at the start of the video, right? Everyone in the NBA was like, you've got to shoot 3-pointers. You've got to shoot 3-pointers. The future of basketball is shooting 3-pointers. And then you have a unicorn like Joker come in. And Denver Nuggets don't shoot that many 3-pointers. They've got a lot of good shooters to space the floor, but they don't actually shoot as many 3-pointers as other teams. And so sometimes when you chase the algorithm too much, which having your 1 to 8 all as hitters is probably going too far. Because the thing with hitters is when Mayank Yadav is bowling at 155 Ks an hour, a hitter isn't skillful enough to handle that, right? When Ashwin is bowling on a turning wicket, a hitter is going to struggle to deal with those sorts of things. So batting skill still matters, but it's clearly being downgraded. And then the other thing because of the extra batter available to you, but then the other thing is, we now know that players can score quicker than they have, right? Like T10 cricket, I can't even get it out of my mouth. T10 cricket is so fascinating just because it is the players who play in it, when you chat to them, they're just like, I have no idea that I could score this many runs this quickly. And T20 cricket and the 100 and all these things, they're opening players' minds up. And we've seen it now in Test cricket, through Bazball, but also through some of the other sides as well, of trying to put more pressure back on and being like, actually, we can score quicker than we thought we could, safer. And that's the level that we're seeing go through. But the best bowlers, if you're going up against Jasprit Bumrah, you don't want to put in, I'm trying to think of someone, a bunch of what? Abhishek Sharmas, Abhishek Parels, maybe, those sorts of players, right? And that's not to say you don't want 1 or 2 of them, but you don't maybe want 8 of them, right? In those sorts of situations. So that's always going to be a pool within the game. I don't think that's going to go away unless we get to the point at which we have 10 specialist batters in a side and we have proper substitutions. Then I think you can have 10 hitters and you're just like, eventually one of these guys is going to come off against our matchup, perhaps. But the extra half a batter, I do think makes a big difference. And also, to get back to the scoreboard, when we were talking about the more sixes, I think the extra half a batter also makes a difference there. Mansahedge says, should Pant and Stubbs have played the percentages and tried to get to 200 to reduce net run rate? Well, I think they did, really, didn't they? I think, am I not mistaken that Rishabh started slowish, I want to say? I know, actually, maybe he didn't. Was he 6 off 1? Was it Stubbs who started slow? So if you go back and you have a look at Stubbs, my memory of Stubbs and coming in was that there was a bunch of overs. Let me find them before they started hitting boundaries again. So let's have a look. So Pant hit a 6, and then so Stubbs was 10 off 7, 11 off 9, 12 off 12, 25 off 16. So he went after Varun Chakravarti, right? And so I think they thought to get to 200, they still had to score at a rate. So I think you're kind of right and you're kind of wrong at the same time. Because they were, let's just have a look. At the end of the power play, they were 51 at the end of the power play, right? And so they were still needing to score at, 10, 12 runs and over in order to be able to get to the 200 that you're talking about. So that I do think they held back a little bit. I don't think they were batting in the same way that the top order was, right? Or the same way that Kolkata was. But they maybe were a little bit lost between trying to play the percentages and still trying to score. And that's the problem is when the percentages are, like I think if I was working for that team, Mansahedge, I probably would have said to them, we actually need to score 220 to 230 to not get a net run rate boost. And perhaps the best way to score 220, 230 is to bat like you're trying to score 260, 270. Whereas if you're trying to score 200 and you've already lost a bunch of wickets, you probably are going to score 160, right? So maybe they didn't even do anything wrong. Honestly, I remember I was talking to Rob Barron and I said to him, what are the odds on Delhi getting bowled out for 180? Because I thought that was on the cards. Not because I thought Delhi were rubbish, just because I thought if they lose a couple of early wickets, it could fall apart. And they were they were, I'm trying to think when they lost their 4th wicket. Were they 34-ish? I think that's right. So, it looked on, my 80 odd looked on at that point. Last one today. Naveen says, feels like mean scores in the IPL have gone up. Are batters to advantage, or is it just that they have improved while bowlers need catching up? Well, as I said, there was a drop in runs a couple of years ago. And I don't remember anyone saying, "Oh, there's been a drop in runs. Bowlers have too many advantages here." There's going to be ebbs and flows. I think that what you're seeing right at the moment is a combination of players feeling more confident in the way they hit the ball, and also on top of that is the impact sub is being used slightly better. We might also have a couple of games now where there's a couple of bowled out for 120s, right? So generally, to get two games with this 250 plus score, the opposite might happen a couple of times. And when that does, will you come back, right, Naveen, and say, never mind? We won't, because we'll remember the outlier games. So if everything changes all the way through this year, I'd be more happy to go with what you're saying. But generally, I need to see a lot more before I just do that. But as far as the bowlers go, there's only going to be more runs scored in limited overs cricket. Right? That's always been the case because batters have not yet, so me and Freddie Wild used to talk about, and I don't know if you can still do it, but me and Freddie Wild used to talk about the theoretical limit of scoring, right? And that theoretical limit was, just trying to see if I can bring this up. I know there's a way of doing this. But it used to be that you could look up. Here we go. We can do this in real time because it's fascinating. We have the ability to look up the runs per over in T20 cricket. Runs per ball in T20 cricket when it comes to free hits. And I think I still have access to it in Samson's database. Let me see if I can bring it up in real time. Sorry, everyone, because this is really fascinating. This will tell us everything that we need to know. All right, so the strike rate. When me and Freddie looked it up about 7 or 8 years ago, and Freddie's now, is he with Rajasthan? He's with RCB, isn't he? When we looked it up a few years ago, it was around 11 runs per over. And maybe 12 runs and over at that point. And that was, it was 13 runs and over. I'll get this right. So that was quite a while back when we looked at it. And we were like, that feels low to us. Like, if you can't get out, we think you should be able to score a little bit quicker. So the year with the highest strike rate of, and this is all T20 cricket, right? The year with the highest strike rate for it is actually 2020. And the year with the second highest strike rate is 2012. So it's not that players have got better at smashing balls, right? So this year at the moment was 2024. How do I not have 2024 on this list? Am I going mad? 2024 at the moment is just above. It's not a particularly high year. It's in the middle. So the strike rate is 205. So on either side of it is 2017 and 2019. So it's nowhere near 2012 or 2014 or 2015, for instance. And when you start to look at those, and it does fluctuate quite a bit by the amount of free hit balls that there are and everything. And I need to look at this deeper because I don't know. I've just done this live, and I might have missed something. But the point being with all of that is that when there are no limits put on, the batters are still not scoring ridiculous amounts. What they have managed to do is work out how to score quicker, safer. And if you go through 1971 all the way through to now in ODI cricket, that's what we've seen. That's what we're seeing in T20 cricket. That's what we're seeing in T10 cricket. The bowling isn't more penalised now than they have been before, right? And there have been little changes that have penalised them at times. But in general, the bowling isn't all that different. What is different is the fact that batters can absolutely score at rates without risking as much. That's a hard thing to legislate against. Now, there might eventually be a swing where swings too far and the game of cricket is no longer enjoyable to watch. I don't think we're anywhere near that, if we're being honest. And I think at the moment, giving bowlers more bounces, for instance, is actually a move back towards the bowlers anyway. So we've already seen that. And we might see other fascinating ones. The wide things of having the batters move around the crease is another situation where the originally you could walk out to a ball and some umpires would call it a wide and some wouldn't. There are little things like that. The leg stump one, of the ball missing leg stump by a millimeter and it automatically being a wide. All those sorts of things, a lot of them have come back towards bowlers a little bit. The two balls help spinners and seamers in ODI cricket. All these little different things that we've seen go all the way through. So my point being is I don't think we are at a point at the moment where batters are too advantaged. Batters are getting better and bowlers, I think, are doing brilliantly. I would have thought by this stage of T20 cricket, with everything that we know, we'd be looking at 200 being much closer to a par score. 200 is nowhere near a par score at the moment. So I think bowlers have actually done fantastically well, but batters are working out what they need to do for this format. And white ball cricket is always and has always been slanted towards batters. All right, that's me done. Thank you very much. Some really smart questions there on the super chats, and also a couple of other people as well. Thank you to everyone who commented. I know there's a lot of people eating meals while on with us as well. So yeah, there was certainly enjoy your meals. We'll be back again on Friday, and we have live watch-alongs also on Saturday and Sunday on Cricket 8. So head over to cricket8.com. You'll find heaps of stuff written by myself and Sean and CS and Estelle and Saurabh, but also heaps of other things like podcasts and videos and everything else. It's like here, but there's more of it. Anyway, I am Jared Kimber. This is Scoreboard. Please like, subscribe, and do all those things that make me and my mother very happy. And we will see you again very soon. Thanks to the kind folks at FlexiSpot for looking after my office and my butt by sending me their E7 Pro Desk that save your favorite desk heights at a touch of a button. You don't have to crank anything. This thing just finds the height that you like and you can work. And their BS12 Pro Chair that supports my posterior while I'm recording, this ad and all my shows. If you need great desks, especially ones that change heights or the best quality chairs, head on over to FlexiSpot today.